Hello and welcome to another Hand Drink Solo wine info video, this time on Latunella's Refosco from Colli Orientali. Colli Orientali del Friuli is located in the larger Friuli Venezia Giulia region, which is up on the top right if you're looking at a map of Italy. It's right up on the border of Slovenia, and so when you've tasted the wines of Friuli and experienced their joy, it will no longer come as a surprise to learn that the wines of Slovenia are also really worth exploring. Now, as a region, Friuli Venezia Giulia definitely are known more for their white wines than their reds. In fact, they produce up to 5 times more white wines than reds. It should also be noted that they make some incredible Sauvignon Blancs, which they just call Sauvignon. So if you're looking for variation on our beloved South African Savvy Bees, you should definitely hunt down some Friuli Sauvignon Blancs. In fact, Latunella, who produced this Refosco, also make a Sauvignon, which is absolutely exquisite. But with all the fuss for Friuli's white wines, it actually has meant that some rather delicious red wines have been overlooked. And so people are slowly starting to correct this. There are some really rather exciting cultivars like Schioppettino and Tazzolenghe, the name of which means to cut the tongue in Italian, which is a reference to its eye-watering acidity. Which I guess brings us to the question, Han, of all the indigenous cultivars you could have picked, why Refosco? Well, when people think of Italian reds, they often think of high acid and high tannins, especially when they're discussing northern Italian reds, which is what makes Refosco a delightfully refreshing change. Now, Refosco is rather thick-skinned and can be tannic if over-extracted, but it can also be delightfully accessible. Because Refosco, along with its potential for tannin, also has waves and waves of rather generous fruit, which means, as in the case of this Latunella, that it presents as far softer and more rounded. It's probably worth saying at this point that this Latunella rendition is far more polished than some of the bigger, more rustic versions of Refosco. And while the acidity is absolutely no slouch on this wine, it is kept in check by the rather generous layers of fruit. Now, Refosco had kind of got lost amidst the myriad of indigenous Italian cultivars. But from about the 70s onwards, it started to experience a little bit of a revival, to the point where in the last 20 years, it's had a little bit of a purple patch, even if it was because it was riding on the coattails of the more famous Friuli Venezia Giulia white wine. And of course, just as you're starting to think, Refosco sounds simple enough, I think I've got the hang of that, you learn that, well, no, nothing in Italy is that simple. And in fact, there are a whole bunch of varieties of Refosco. Now, the one that we have in this particular case is Refosco del Peduncolo Rosso, which is indigenous to Friuli, as well as the surrounding regions. But what of this particular bottle? Well, the Latunella Refosco del Peduncolo Rosso has very moderate alcohols, about 13.5%, which gives you an idea of the winemaking ethos that was adopted when making this. It also sees 12 months in oak, which lends it a lovely silky element of polish, which also brings with elements of smoky oak and aniseed and even a hint of fennel. Okay, so if this is your first Refosco, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Be sure to leave a review in the section below, or if you don't feel like doing that, ask any questions you might have about Refosco, Refosco del Peduncolo Rosso, Friuli Venezia Giulia as a region, or even Latunella as a producer. If I don't know the answers offhand, I'll be sure to find them out and get them back to you.